Hello, everyone. This is episode 20 of The Power of Practice. And on today's show, you're going to be learning why spiritual practice is necessary for personal growth with my guest, Dr. David Weinthal. Welcome, everybody, to The Power of Practice on Air. I'm your host, Lisa Ingalls. I'm an author, a speaker, and a mindset mastery coach. I'm the founder of Inner State Coaching, where I help visionary leaders to create radical change in the world by first creating radical change within themselves. And you can learn more about me and my services by visiting www.innerstatecoaching.com. While you're there, go ahead and pick up my free report on my 5-step practice for creating radical change in your health, in your wealth, in your happiness. So in my 20 years as a coach, it's become very clear to me that creating radical change in your life, doesn't matter what area of life it is, whether it's your spirituality, your health, your money, or whatever, it isn't about doing certain things. Rather, it's about doing things in a certain way, which does require just a little bit of practice. So that's what this show is all about. In this show, I bring on guest experts from around the world in a wide range of fields, from health and wellness to finances and spirituality, everything else in between, and I ask them all the same question, and that question is, what one practice can you share with us today that can create a radical breakthrough in our lives? And it's through these practices that you, the viewer, you, the listener, can turn your stumbling blocks into stepping stones. So if you're joining us live today, please do let us know that you're here. You can type into the comments, let us know that you're here. Where are you coming from? If you have any questions for my guest, Dr. David Weinthal today, you can type those into the comments as well. Same goes for replay. That's the wonderful thing about Google Hangouts, is that we can still interact and engage and continue this discussion even in the replay. So most people that I know and in the field that I'm in would agree that spiritual practice is a very important part of our lives, in the same way that exercise, physical exercise, is a very important part of living and being healthy and well. But the truth is that even though most people know that these things are good for us, that exercise is good, that spiritual practice is good, it isn't that easy for a lot of people to practice. I know this from my background in my former life, I like to say, as a personal trainer, where I would get clients coming in a lot and saying, oh, I know I'm supposed to exercise, but I just can't do it, so I'm hiring you as a personal trainer, which was perhaps the worst thing that I could ever hear, was that someone needed me to be their accountability partner, because that's not ultimately where I like motivation to come from for my clients. You want the motivation to come from within. So the same thing is true of a spiritual practice. I hear many people saying, oh, I know how important it is to meditate, or I should be meditating, or I should have some type of spiritual practice. I know how good it is, but I just don't have the time, or I just don't know what to do, or I don't know where to get started. So in this episode of The Power of Practice, my guest, Dr. David Weinthal, is going to be teaching us a spiritual practice, a very simple spiritual practice that you can begin to incorporate into your life immediately. Now let me give you a little bit of a background on who my guest is, who Dr. David Weinthal is. He's coming to us today from Texas, and he is a doctor of Oriental medicine and the founder of the High Vibrational Living Summit Series. And he's also studied with Dr. Ibrahim Jaffe at the University of Spiritual Healing and Sufism. And he's actually, Dr. David Weinthal has become an ordained minister and a certified master healer and teacher of the, if I can say this right, Shadaliya Sufi way. And I'm sure David will be correcting me on that one. Welcome to the show, David.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Did I say that right? I sort of said that.
Oh, you stepped on it a little bit. It's the Shadaliya Sufi way.
Shadaliya Sufi way. All right, awesome, awesome. Well, it's great to have you here, and thanks for joining us. I know that you're in the middle of a workshop yourself, so you stepped out from that workshop to be here with us for the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Lisa. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and every one of your listeners. And, it's such an important piece about connection. You know, what you're doing here on the Google Hangouts is an opportunity to connect with everyone out there, and that leads us into spiritual practice. For me, when you asked me to be on here and ask me my question, what practice is the one important part that you could do, that I could teach about? And to me, it's about making that connection to the divine. I was reading in one of the sacred books, the holy books, and they said that the one pivotal piece that we can do, the highest thing that we can do, is make connection to the divine presence in our lives, and to create a practice of doing that on a daily basis or even multiple times throughout the day. And so what that does is it gives us an opportunity to clear away all of our attachments and all of the chatter that's in our minds and connect to something that may be higher than ourselves and connect to a higher purpose within ourselves.
Right.
So
oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say I absolutely agree, and I think that a lot of people, like I said in the intro, will totally agree with that. And then what do we do, though? How do we make the time for this? So, like, the studies are out there that says, that spiritual practice and connecting to the divine is critical. And I would even say now more than ever, with what is going on in our world and our sense of meaning and what is this all about, what's happening with our world out there and our planet. There's an awakening happening, a shift happening, but this piece about the importance of a spiritual practice, I think, is critical. So what's your take on how do we incorporate it into our busy lives? If we think, God, I'm trying to take care of my kids and my work, and I have this and that, and it's just another thing to put on my to-do list. I know I'm supposed to, but where do I even start?
Well, that's a great question. And, just like you were talking about before, about being a personal trainer and making the time to go to the gym and to exercise your muscles to then have the results inside your body, the same thing you need to do with your spiritual practice. And for many of us that we feel like we're a spiritual being, and this doesn't have anything to do with religion per se, versus spirituality, it's our own connection to the divine and to feel that presence. First, it's about making that connection, and then making that your being with the divine, and then feeling the guidance that the divine presence gives to you in your everyday life. Mm-hmm. I guess that the hardest part is, and that you were just talking about, is that we have so many distractions in our lives. We have so many appointments. We have so many things that we need to do throughout the day. And just like anything, we need to schedule these things inside. So making the time is about just putting it on your calendar and creating the space for it. That's got to be the first and foremost thing that I tell my patients. And I say that, connection to the divine can happen in one moment. It can last. You can do an exercise for 1 minute, and it can last and give you that clarity for the rest of the day. So it's not like you have to be in a cave like a monk and disassociate yourself from all of that's happening, but you can incorporate something in a very easy to use process that can have lasting results throughout your day. And you can call upon a simple practice anytime. You're sitting in the car. You're all by yourself in the car. Turn off the radio and do a spiritual exercise while you're at the red light. You have like 90 seconds to do something. Yeah. You can clear away yourself, and you can have that clarity. You can quiet the voices that are inside your mind for a second, and you can have an opportunity to connect to that deeper piece that you've been yearning to hear.
Right. And I'd like to point out, you made a really great point that probably the #1 obstacle to bringing a spiritual practice in that I think that a lot of people have is that we're distracted. We have a lot of distractions in our life, and I love the fact that you say the easiest way to overcome those distractions is to make a commitment and schedule it into your day in some way. It's really about becoming aware, and it doesn't matter, I think, as you point out, it doesn't even have to be that you say, oh, I'm got to wake up a half hour earlier and have my practice. What if you just remember that every time I'm at a stoplight and I'm alone in the car, which most people are at some point in the day, I'm going to use that for a moment of practice. And it reminds me, as you said, that it only really takes a moment. In some cases, about 10 or 12 years ago, I had a very strong practice in Buddhism, and part of my Buddhist practice was to chant what's called Daimoku, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And part of that practice was to chant for up to like sometimes an hour a day, just Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. But as part of the practice, they said you could chant and chant and chant for hours and hours of Daimoku, and it means nothing. Or you could chant one time Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and it could change your world. It's the intention and the awareness that you give to that practice.
Absolutely. I totally agree that. You know, it's not the quantity of doing something, it's the quality that we're setting the intention for. And I think you've hit the first piece that our listeners need to hear is just hearing that simple reminder that it doesn't have to be hard, and it doesn't have to put you out more than what you're expecting it to be. And for most of us, it's really those simple first steps to getting started. You know, like anything, it takes an enormous amount of energy to get the car rolling. But once the car is rolling and you get into this spiritual practice and you start to see the instantaneous results, you're going to want to do it again and again and again. And sometimes we get bogged down with life, and that's okay. But when we get so cluttered with the voices inside of our head and the schedules that we have to keep, that we're losing connection, and we're falling into we're not on purpose, we're not hearing the guidance, the deeper guidance in our life. That in itself is an opportunity that the divine is trying to speak to us about making that simple connection.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is like a great segue into what is that one practice. And you have this beautiful practice that you've told me about called the practice of remembrance. And I'm guessing this comes from your years and years of Sufism. Correct me if I'm wrong, but could you give us a little bit of, first of all, for those people out there who may have heard of Sufism but aren't aware what it is, if you could give a really quick little definition of what is Sufism, and then maybe lead us into this practice of remembrance.
Well, very briefly, Sufism is like many mystical paths or spiritual paths, they may be tied to a particular religious view, but what we find is that religion has its aspect, and then within everything there are the mystics, the ones that look beyond the scripture to find the hidden doorways, the hidden meanings that transport us or teleport us into another realm of consciousness. And what I'm speaking about is that moment when you have clarity, when your mind is quiet and all things are possible. And so we say the Sufi is the mystic or the lover of God. He's enamored with being not only in love with God, but being intimate, one-on-one relationship. You don't need to go through anyone. You don't need to go to a church or a mosque or a temple to be there. The temple is within your heart, where the soul is housed. And that's where you're connecting to that deep place within the divine.
I love that. Yeah. And so basically anybody, I know that there are certain practices, but you're saying Sufis come from all different, all different walks of life.
Absolutely. You know, there is Islamic Sufis, and then there are mystical orders of Sufis that people come through and still retain their attachments to Christianity, to Judaism, to Buddhism. It's those that find themselves about having that intimate contact, that one-on-one relationship, no matter whether you call yourself a Sufi or not. That's what a Sufi, the essence of a Sufi is. And it's the essence of the lover and the beloved. So at one moment you could be the lover and you're loving on the divine as your beloved, and then the other aspect that flips the other side of the coin is that the divine becomes the lover and it loves on you in that his spark is within us. So we have these two sides of the coin that we're flipping between, that we, as we grow our spiritual heart and we understand that depth within us, we can play on both sides of that coin. It's a really beautiful aspect of looking at.
That's really cool. And so I'm guessing that this practice of remembrance has to do with something about remembering this lover-beloved relationship?
Absolutely.
All right.
And so the number one thing, now there again, you know, being a Sufi, I use the name of God. There are, in Sufism we talk about that there are 99 divine names for God. And there are many different qualities, and these are what we would talk about as a quality. Like the divine would be the compassionate one, the merciful one. We yell out, you know, in a time of need. We say, oh, you know, I need mercy at this moment, or I need to be loved at this moment. Well, to know love, that love had to be shined upon us, and that love first comes from God. To know God and to love God, he has to be loving on us first so that we experience that love within us, then we turn back to him. And that turning effect is called tauba. And, you know, at any moment, we get busy in the world doing all of the different things that we do throughout the day. And one part of remembrance is realizing that we need to take a break through our daily activities and remind ourselves to turn back into our own heart and to make that connection to spiritual heart. And that's what we're asking for. We turn back, and we're turning back is because the heart turns to the world and then the heart turns to the divine. And it's a constant dance between these two aspects that our heart has, because we, you know, and the beauty about this whole entire thing is that it blends what I do for a living, which is a doctor of acupuncture and oriental medicine. And in Chinese medicine, we say between heaven and earth is the human being. And so the heart is the relationship between the world and the world of the unseen or the divine. And so we're doing this constant little dance. It's a beautiful dance. And when you get to know the dance, you realize where you get stuck. And most of us get stuck in our daily activities with all of these appointments, with all the activities, with family members and all the things that we need to do. And it's about taking that moment, reconnecting, putting ourselves into alignment, and then transforming that remembrance. And so any one of us could utilize a spiritual practice in which we can. In Sufism, we talk about the 99 qualities where they have individual qualities, or you could use a name, a master name, that embodies all of the qualities. And for us in Sufism, we utilize the name of Allah. Okay. But there are 7 sacred names that I'm going to tell you about, just so that individuals on our call can practice with any one of them that lights up for them. So like I said, the one that I practice with is the one that's in Arabic, that's Allah, or Aramaic, what Jesus used to use and speak with was Allahu. In Hebrew, Adonai, Yahweh. In Chinese, the name for God is Fa. And in Sanskrit, the name for God is Had. So any one of these names have a sonic vibrational toning that when we repeat them, that resonance starts to excite all of our cells to take on the light of the divine. And so just like when God said, let there be light, when we say something, that action happens. And so when we remember the name of God, we remember it with every cell in our body. Our body starts to pick up that vibration of it, and that's when we start to make that alignment and our connection so that ultimately we can get the guidance that we're all looking for.
So to get a little clearer on this, I think what you're saying is you pick one of these names, the names which most resonates with you, which, as a side note, all of those names that you mentioned have the sound in them. So like God also has
You got it.
So maybe that seed sound of the in there. But so say I was saying that I picked Yahweh. And so is it that I just repeat the name in the remembrance practice? Is it that I repeat the name of this sacred name of God that resonates with me? And
absolutely.
And then for how long do you do that? And what are you supposed to be thinking anything?
You don't need to be thinking anything. I think that the greatest tool is that you try to clear your mind and you let the name wash over your thoughts and wash down from your mind down into your heart. So you're kind of doing like a cleansing effect. It's like if you took, in the old days, the mirrors were made out of polished steel. And what happened was a mirror would get rusty, okay, over time. And that's what a metaphor for our heart is. Over time, when we're not connecting to the divine, our hearts get rusty. They get into a place where they get attached to a group of feelings or sensations. Let's use an example. Somebody quick-tempered, or they latch on to anger as their first response. You know what I'm saying? Somebody that you say something and they take it the wrong way and they respond back with what I would say fire, or a fiery statement to you. That's because the heart has gotten blocked. It's not letting the light in. So by doing the remembrance exercise, it starts to scrub, like taking Brillo pad to a steel mirror, and it starts to scrub away all of those places inside of ourselves to let that beautiful reflection ultimately show to the world. And that's what the beauty of this one exercise can do.
This is so cool because I use this analogy similar to what you did all the time with my clients too. Is I say, in the same way that you take a shower every day, hopefully, you brush your teeth every day, your physical hygiene. We need mental hygiene, we need spiritual hygiene, and that's such a beautiful description of spiritual hygiene, that we need a spiritual hygiene practice. This is the way that we
absolutely.
It's also a spiritual, practice of, strengthening, as we said in the very beginning too. So as a recap of this, can you just walk us through the exact step-by-step? What would be, if I were to, schedule it in and just have this remembrance practice, exactly how do I do it?
Well, first of all, what I would do is this. I mean, if you're starting to do this for the first time, I would suggest, if you're at home, to go and put yourself in a quiet room so you don't have any external stimuli going on. Definitely don't have the TV going on. But if you have other family members in the house, just to excuse yourself for a few minutes and go sit quietly in a room. So because it's easier when you're first starting to have all of the external stimuli turned to a lower, to nothing or at a small amount. And as you start to practice, basically what I like to say is don't have any intention on what it's supposed to look like. Just go in there, say an invocation. I ask that my heart open and I quiet my mind so that I can receive, direct guidance and I can make a direct connection to the divine. And you can use whatever words you say, whatever the description is for God for yourself. And then just start to pick a name that resonates for you. You can utilize any name, but it's really about the intention that's behind the name. But what you picked up on is if the name has the ah sound, it's the ah sound that's in the name that actually does the transformation within the cell. And the reason why the Sufis use Allah as the master name is because it has ah sound in two places. So it's like getting a double dip of ice cream of the ah sound. And so when we're doing Allah, Allah, and we're just repeating that, whether we're doing it outside or we're doing it quietly inside, it starts to transform ourselves and transform the cells inside of ourselves with that divine light. And once you have done that, you could do it as simply do it 100 times. You could do it for 2 to 5 minutes and get dramatic results if you set the right intention and you hold it in a place of sacredness within yourselves. Like, I'm going to spend 2 minutes and do this exercise, and I'm going to really give it 2 minutes of really complete attention, is better than spending 8 hours in a spiritual retreat when you're not really fully there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And I love the simplicity of it. I think that's part of the mystical way of the Sufi, is the simplicity yet the profound, like how profound a practice can be in its simplicity. And that's actually something that's been a theme across all of these shows and all the guests that I have come in. Is like, okay, this is such a simple practice, but if you commit to this practice of remembrance, it will have profound effects on your life. Yeah. Wonderful. I know that there's so much more that we could go into, but I think that that's like a wonderful encapsulation and a great introduction to a practice that anybody could start right now, today, the practice of remembrance. And like you said, you could do it anywhere. You could be in a park, you could be at the beach, you could be at home, you could be sitting on the airplane, traveling even.
Absolutely.
Even know that you're doing the practice. So that's another piece of the beauty of it, is that you can walk the practice. And I think that's the other cool thing about Sufi. I don't know a ton about Sufism, but that it is something that's meant to be incorporated into your living, breathing daily life. You don't go sit in a cave, like you said, back in India somewhere and have to meditate for hours upon hours. So, well, thank you so much, David. It's been wonderful to have you here, and I want you to also share how people can learn more about what you're doing, because you're doing some amazing work besides your practice, your actual brick and mortar practice. You have some other things going on. So can you take a moment to share with us what else you're doing?
Absolutely. Thank you. So like you said, I am the founder of the High Vibrational Living Summit series, which is a telesummit series interviewing expert health, wellness, and spiritual leaders in the world that are out there making change. And so you can definitely look for us. We are a 2 summit series per year. The first part is looking at our own personal health and wellness and raising our vibration. And then our second series, which will be coming up in September, will be taking that high vibration and helping us to bring it out into the world. So I'm going to be doing that 2 parts a year, and I'm very excited about doing that. And I'm also working with people on helping them to raise their vibration through eating and doing nutritional upgrades in their lives. And so you can find out more about what I do on the High Vibration Activation which is my membership site in which I talk about cleansing and detoxification and spiritual healing.
Cool. So that is highvibrationactivation.com where they can find out more.
That's right. Absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, wonderful. So I highly recommend that you go visit Dr. David Weinthal over there. And we're going to wrap up here, the power of practice. Thanks once again so much, David, for joining us on the show today. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Lisa. You've been wonderful, and it's been a pleasure being here. I look forward to being here again soon.
Absolutely. And thanks to all you viewers joining us today, whether you were live or in replay. As I always say, it is my belief that each one of us is absolutely capable of radical transformation, of achieving quantum breakthroughs in our health and our wealth and our happiness. It's just that sometimes we don't have the tools or the resources that we need in order to do that, and that's really what this show is about, is to give you some of those tools and resources so that you can start making those radical breakthroughs. So once again, you can visit me, Lisa Ingalls, over at www.interstatecoaching.com and pick up a free report there while you're over there as well. We're going to say bye for now. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. I hope you walked away with something really valuable today. Go ahead and try that remembrance practice out. I know I will. And we will look forward to seeing you all next time.